Did you come here for a pie, sir? Do forgive me if my head's a little vague. Ugh, what is that? But you think we had the play? From the way that people keep avoiding, no you don't. Heaven knows I try, sir. But there's no one comes in even to inhale. Right to us, sir, would you like a drop of ale? Mind you, I can hardly blame them. These are probably the worst pies in London. I know why nobody cares to take them. I should know, I make them, but good, no, the worst pies in London.
A tender tale of Sweeney Todd. A tender tale of Sweeney Todd. He served a dark and a vengeful God. He served a dark and a vengeful God. What happened then? Well, that's the play, and he wouldn't want us to give it away. Not Sweeney. Not Sweeney Todd. The demon robber of Fleet Street.
My guests are Patti LuPone and Michael Cerveris. Thanks for coming in today.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Let's start it off with just the story of Sweeney Todd. It's a very unusual story to be put on a Broadway show. What is it all about?
Well, I guess in some ways the story is sort of different for the two of us. For Sweeney, the story is about, you know, finding his coming back to London after being wrongfully convicted and sent away to Australia, and finding that his whole former life has been sort of taken from him. So he gets set on a course for revenge and wanting to create his own justice. And I think for Mrs. Lovitz, it's sort of a different story.
It's the guy she had a crush on has come back, and she's just as happy to hook up and do whatever he needs her to do so she can be near him. And if it means killing and baking them into
we have
meat
to mention
pies,
that, but
fine.
it is a gory tale. And of course, you're the barber who is basically trying to seek revenge with your blade.
Right.
And then you, what do you do with the bodies?
I cut them up and put them into meat pies.
Wonderful pies.
And sell them and become a very successful businesswoman because humans are tasty.
And previously, your pies were not doing too well.
No, there was nothing but crusting. Now we've got a little meat in them.
A fine example of capitalism at work, really.
Now,
there you go.
This is a very different staging of Sweeney Todd, and Sondheim said that it is the most intense one, and it's also the one that sort of captured what he wanted to create. How do you think that intensity was created?
Well, I think it's the simplicity and the starkness and really just going to Stephen's original, the story that kind of existed before Stephen got a hold of it, and then the way that he took it down the really dark recesses of human behavior and gave voice to that and gave melody to that, and everything extraneous is really sort of stripped away, so there's no place to hide for the audience or the actors, and I think that makes it a really intense, vital experience.
I mean, it used to be, though, to be on Broadway, you had to be able to sing, dance, and act. Now you also have to keep up on your music lessons. Because
isn't that great?
Now, John Dewell, the director, this is sort of his stock and trade of taking actors and make them all play their own instruments, which is what we see. All of the actors in Sweeney Todd play their own instruments. What was it like for you to have to play the tuba and the guitar while being up on stage?
Well, I hadn't played the tuba since Northport, Long Island High School marching band. And I don't even think I played it then. I just wanted to be in the band, so I remember the routines, but I don't remember actually hitting any notes. But I do remember the embouchure, the mouth, you know, what you have to do in the mouthpiece to create a sound. So when it was determined that I would be playing the tuba, I started to practice with somebody up where I live in Connecticut, and the embouchure came back, and so did the memories, and I'm quite happy to be playing the tuba.
What about you, Michael?
I've been finding it really fascinating. I've played guitar for a long time, and usually in bands and, you know, more sort of rock context. But it's been really wonderful getting to be an accompanist, and in the two numbers that I really play guitar the most in, I'm basically accompanying other actors, and to sort of really try to connect with somebody else's performance in that way and really support that kind of thing. It's a perfect example of what you hope to be doing as an actor all the time anyway. So to have, that literal kind of support is really, it's a really satisfying thing to do. I really look forward to those moments where I get to just sit down and play guitar for somebody else telling the story.
And I think there are a lot of performers out there that do play musical instruments. I think that growing up in America, at least in New York State, I was in a music department in elementary school, and it's a pity that they've cut music in schools.
Absolutely.
I think if you're going to end up on the stage, you were somehow in your youth involved in the music department,
the arts
not in the biology department.
Exactly.
And it's a pity that particular society of kids is being ignored or being shunted because the music has been cut from schools.
Right.
Although in our show, the biology department probably...
Right. Well, I have to say, this is the first time I've actually seen this production. There's something about seeing Sweeney Todd that has a lasting impact on you. I'd like to get the story from both of you, how you first saw it.
Well, we both saw the original.
Yeah.
And I think that, in my case, I was gobsmacked. I just could not believe the expanse of the production. It was huge. It was scary in a exaggerated way, and it was literal. The blood actually came out of the razor blade, and they went down a chute, and it was huge. I think the set almost spilled off the sides of the stage. It was shocking. The music was extraordinary. The performances were awesome. It was, everything about it was theater as it should be in my mind at that time. It was like huge and visual and scary and imaginative, but that's not to say that that's the only way theater should have been, because at the same time there was theater downtown from the Eastern Bloc, which was my favorite theater, all the stuff at La Mama, where it was, I remember International Wrestling Match, a play by Jeff Weiss, which took place in a wrestling ring, and it was, so anything that can release the imagination is going to have a great effect on the theater goer, and Hal's production did that for me.
What about, I read, tell me if this is true, that it was really seeing Sweeney Todd that inspired you to become an actor. True or false?
In a lot of ways, that's really true. I had done community theater and theater in school. My father was a university professor, so I was often the little kid in the university productions. The first thing I ever did was Caucasian Chalk Circle at, in second grade. So I was kind of set on a dark path from the beginning. But I didn't really think that this was necessarily something that I was going to find a place in. I thought, my tastes and my particular skills were probably not suited to the Broadway musical as I understood it. And I
Why
played
do you say that?
Well, I just thought it was a little. I felt like I was more an actor who sang than a singer who acted, and I didn't see a lot of examples of that kind of priority, and I didn't see a lot of shows that required that kind of performer. And then I went to see Sweeney Todd, and it was the first Broadway show I ever saw, from the next to the last row of the then Uris, now Gershwin Theater, so I'm like a football field away. But I couldn't have been more overwhelmed by it if I'd been sitting in the front row. It was for me, as much as the whole production was extraordinary and overwhelming, just as Patti described, and Angela Lansbury was fantastic, but for me it was Len Cariou who was the epitome of the actor who sang, and who reached me at the very back of the theater and terrified me and thrilled me and everything else. And I thought, maybe there is a place for me, not ever thinking that I could aspire to be in a place like he was, and I find it surreal that I am at the moment. But
I think Steve also supplies the actor who sings with the characters to allow the actor who sings to act. Do you know what I mean?
You think that's the beauty of Stephen Sondheim?
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not denigrating any other composer, but surely his soul and his compassion and his passion and the stuff he chooses to write about allows actors to really get into the role.
It feels very, to me, like doing Shakespeare. It asks the absolute utmost from you and gives you the absolute most in return, and it's so intellectual and so smart, but not in a dry, purely rational way. It's also so humanly smart and so
Passionate.
emotionally smart and passionate.
Yeah.
And you know, it takes everything that you have to give it and more.
Well, it's clearly resonating with everyone. I mean, critics love it, and so do ticket buyers, because you have a hit. And hopefully you also pick up a Tony, because there's already that starting the Tony buzz. Thank you very much for stopping by.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do want to remind you that Sweeney Todd, starring Patti LuPone and Michael Cerveris, is currently playing at the Eugene O'Neill Theatre on Broadway.